Oh my gosh, so I can't believe we are getting ready to have this conversation. But this month is the month of love. This month is Valentine's Day. And I had a couple of people that I was talking to. One person had a question on, like, how do you bring the magic back into your relationship? Which is an excellent question. Like, if you've been with someone, if you've been with your partner for a few years or maybe a few decades, and you just want to continue to strengthen that relationship with them, what are some things that you can do to keep the magic alive? So I wanted to talk with you guys about that this month, hopefully this week. And then the other topic, because they're kind of polar opposite topics, the other topic was around how do you get over someone in a relationship, right? Like, and this person was asking me, like, how do you don't you think that if I could get over someone, if I could just stop thinking about them, I would? Like, sometimes we want to let go of someone and it's impossible to stop thinking about that person. So, I mean, that really hit home for me because I know I've had seasons in my life where I felt like I wanted someone that I couldn't have, or maybe had an attraction for someone who would not have been a good fit for me, or it wasn't a good time, and I had to let that person go, and it was really hard. So I know the follow-up question that they asked me was like, if they said, well, if you had to stop caring for your husband, could you just do that? And I actually said yes without hesitation. And it's not that I could ever just, fall out of love with him. I would still have love for him. But in our relationship, I always try to carry with me something that my dad had shared with us when we were growing up. And the first one was that love is a choice, right? We get to choose who we love. And then that love is a verb. So, I mean, I know sometimes people will say, oh no, you can't choose who you love. But if love is a verb, you do, right? I can choose to be loving to my husband. It might be more difficult to choose who you have an infatuation with, like if you have, or who you have feelings for without showing affection towards that person. But there are still things that we can do that will help us to move forward, so we don't have to feel so stuck, because I've been there. I know that's hard. So we're going to talk about that today, how to get over a person that you no longer want to feel attached to. In 10 steps. So I wish I could hold up both hands for you, but 10 steps in sign language. 10 steps to help you get over someone that you no longer want to have feelings of attachment towards. So let's go. Tip number one. Tip number one is to let your friends know that you are trying to move on past this person. So every time you're hanging out with your friends, they can stop asking you, how's so-and-so, or so-and-so is doing this. They know not to bring their name up because you are trying to move forward. So that's tip number one. Tip number two is to rearrange your social media. So if you have a habit of hopping on social media, checking out their page, posting about how you're doing it with the relationship, if that's something that you do, to take a step back, you might have to take a break from the social media altogether. But yes, to put yourself in an environment that is going to allow you to heal, right? Like if you had scraped your knee, right, riding your bike, right? And maybe you're not an expert at riding your bike yet. You're not going to just go back outside, not put a Band-Aid on, go riding your bike again, or keep scratching at that scab. You're going to want to let it heal, and it's going to need time to heal. So you don't want to keep putting yourself in that same environment that's going to kind of continue to pour salt on an open wound, if you will. So that's what we're talking about when we're thinking about the first couple of tips of making sure your friends know not to keep bringing this person up, making sure that you're pulling yourself away from social media, not, like cyber stalking them. And so then that brings us to our third tip, which is the phone. So you might need to take a break from calling or texting this person if you have a habit of doing that regularly, just until you're in a space where it's no longer triggering for you, right? Where you don't feel depressed hearing their voice on the other side of the phone, or you're anxiously waiting, hoping that they're going to come back to you, or that something in the relationship is going to change. Sometimes we need to set the tone for the change in the relationship that we need, right? It might not be what we want, but it's what we know that we need. So we want to set ourselves up to succeed in that way. Tip number 4. Tip number 4 is to create a list of grievances. I know there's this episode of Seinfeld where basically George's dad has this holiday that he made up, and it's called Festivus for the rest of us, and in it they have this list of grievances that they go through. But I want you guys to create something like that for the person that you're trying to get over, because no one is perfect. So if you can remind yourself of that fact that, sometimes we tend to romanticize a relationship, and then when it doesn't work out, we feel like, that was the best that I'll ever have. Nothing could ever be better than this relationship that you've glamorized, right? That you've turned into this fairy tale that doesn't exist. So if you can say, okay, well, and I did part of this on another video, but he likes to kick puppies, or she never lets me get a word in edgewise. She's always telling me to shut up. Maybe he's calling me names, or maybe nothing's wrong with this person, but you have different values. You have different core values. Like, he doesn't want kids, or even if it's something simple to start to just help you out, you can ask your friends, like, what are some of the annoying traits that so-and-so had? That might be a time where they can chime in, help you add to that list to help you move forward, to stop romanticizing this person that you want to get over. Okay, so you've finished tip number 4. You've written down your list of grievances. He likes to pick his nose and eat his boogers. She leaves the seat up when she pees. I don't even know why she needs to lift the toilet seat up when she goes to potty, but it's happening, and it's on the list to remind you. This is why we don't need to have an attachment towards this person. The next thing you want to do for tip number 5 is to write down the benefits of moving forward. Maybe you have more free time because you're not constantly worried about when this person is going to message you back, how they're doing, who they're dating, so you have more free time. Maybe you have less stress in your life because you're not sad because the way that they're treating you is not meeting your expectations. And then, maybe not being in a relationship with them leaves you with more time to work on yourself and be in a position later on where you can be in a relationship with someone that you are better aligned to be in a relationship with. That brings us to tip number 6. So this is 6. Tip number 6 is to write affirmations for yourself. What are some of the characteristics and things that you like about yourself, right? Why do you deserve to be in a healthy, loving relationship? And you do. We all do. So, and even if you're feeling like, no, I don't know if I deserve that, right? Maybe you have some personal growth and development before you're ready to be in your next relationship. But the truth is, we all have inner work that we could do, right? And maybe it doesn't change the fact that it still might be a good idea for you to wait before jumping into the next relationship. But while you're getting ready for that relationship, to work on your relationship with yourself. So that's tip number 6, affirmations and taking the time to get to know and love yourself. This could include not just affirmations, positive affirmations, but selfie dates, going on a walk with yourself, taking quiet time to have with God, that should be tip number 1. Honestly, tip number 6 could be tip number 1, and that is to talk to God about the person that you no longer want to have an unhealthy attachment towards, because there are a number of things, a host of things that can be contributing to this unhealthy relationship. It could be a soul tie that you have with that person if you've had an intimate physical relationship with them. It could be like part of a generational curse if you find yourself constantly looking for the next relationship. Like, you can't be without someone on your shoulder or someone next to you. That ask God to help you to work through that, to help you to let that person go, for him to reveal to you what's going on in your spiritual life that needs to be healed, like, or what wounds from your past need to be healed so you can move forward and onto a healthier relationship. So that's tip number 6, even though it should be tip number 1. Next, tip number 7. Tip number 7 is to communicate with the other person that you need boundaries. So these tips are this is just a list of tips. They're not necessarily in order right now. But tip number 7, yes, to make sure that you communicate to the other person that you need space. Because otherwise you might end up in a situation where they're trying to contact you, you're trying to move on, and it's just not happening because you need time and you haven't communicated that to them. Tip number 8. Tip number 8 is to get a hobby, right? We have been spending a lot of time focusing on this person that we don't need to be in a relationship with, which means we have more time to focus on something that could benefit us. So we want to get a healthy hobby. So they say when you're trying to change a bad habit, a good idea or a good place to start is by replacing it with a new one, a new healthier habit. So if we're looking at leaving a relationship that's not serving us, we can replace some of that time that we used to spend cyber stalking or talking with this person or spending time with this person in a new activity or new activities. Say if you wanted to go back to school and study something, if you're interested in playing an instrument, having more time with God, spending more time with yourself, spending more time in Christian community, crocheting, pottery, going for a walk, taking up an aerobics class, taking a cooking class. The options are, I don't want to say endless, but it could be endless. And if you're having trouble thinking of some ideas, you guys can feel free to share your ideas in the comments below for other people, or you can ask some of your other friends, what are some fun things that I could do that could help me occupy my time when I'm trying to get over this person, or maybe some fun things that you can do with your friends together. Indoor rock climbing, swimming, endless. So that brings us to tip number 9. Tip number 9. So I was talking to a friend of mine and I said, what's some advice that you would give on how to get over a person? And she said, you have to hate them. Hate them for a really long time, maybe a few weeks, 3 weeks to 6 months. Get them to do something that's going to get on your nerves, and then that'll make it easier to get over the person. So hopefully that's easy for you guys to do. It might not always be an easy thing to do, but yes, I think that comes back to what we talked about earlier, and not romanticizing the person that you're trying to get over, because nobody's perfect. And you don't fully align with anyone that you want to be in a relationship with, right? Because we're all human, so there's always going to be something. And if you're thinking about that person and you can't think of anything that you don't like about them, that might mean that you don't know them very well to begin with. So even that should make it a little bit easier to highlight some of the dislikes that you have towards that person, if you will. to find that ick and hold on to it. Tip number 9. Tip number 9 is to seek emotional support, right? And you might not need that to get over your crush or whoever you are having these feelings towards, right? To the person that you want to get over in the relationship. But sometimes we do. Sometimes we like someone and we can't tell other people about it, right? Or for whatever reason, maybe you like someone who's friends with someone else, or you like someone and you can't believe that you like them, and so you haven't said it out loud, but it's eating you up inside, and you need to be able to share that with someone. And if you don't have someone that you can confide in, right, like a close friend or relative, a counselor is a good place to start. Finding a good counselor that you can confide in, who can help you to move on past the unhealthy relationship and move on towards a healthier relationship with yourself, and eventually, when you're ready, a new person that you can have a healthy relationship with. Okay guys, so that brings us to our last tip number 10. Tip number 10 is to cut yourself a break, right? Sometimes when we have an unrequited affection towards a person, or maybe the affection is mutual, but it's just not a healthy relationship for you to be in, it can be easy for us to beat ourselves up and say, oh, I shouldn't like this person, or this person doesn't like me, what's wrong with me? Maybe nothing. It might just not be a good fit, and that's okay. It might be something that they don't like about you, or maybe it's something that's going on with them and they're not ready to be in a relationship with you. Just because you're not in a relationship with the person that you think you like doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. Sometimes it's just not the right person or not the right time. One thing we can always do is continue to work on ourselves, and one thing that's never really helpful is to beat ourselves up over not being able to be in a relationship with someone, right? Like if you think about the best day that you've ever had, what were the days like before that day? I'm sure you had other days that were pretty awesome, but you might not have ever seen that day coming. Just like this person who you think is pretty awesome, and maybe they are, that to know that God has someone out there for you that is even more awesome because they're the right fit. And it's hard to imagine, right? It's hard for us to imagine what that looks like right now because we're not there, but to encourage you that it's out there for you. You have to be patient and to get ready for it. And if you spend your time obsessing over the person that you don't have right now, or trying to stay in a relationship with someone who's not good for you, you're not going to have room to welcome that next best thing. I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye guys.